be your host for today. And the topic is quite interesting. We are going to be speaking on food safety. And today I'm joined by wonderful speakers who I will let them introduce themselves shortly. So I just want to go down to how this works. So what we do is that I'm going to ask the speakers questions, Q&A style, and then at the end of the show, I'm going to open up the floor to the listeners. So if you feel like I haven't asked a question that you really would like to know, you can get the opportunity to become a speaker and then ask our speakers direct questions. So without any further ado, let me start. So, good evening to our speakers. I would like you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do. I'll start with you, Tamsin.
Good evening, everyone. Gugu, thank you for having me. Um, like you said, I'm Tamsin. I am the owner of Crystal Consulting or Crystal Farming and Consulting. I'm a poultry farmer, but I specialize in food safety, that's where the consulting part comes in. My main aim is to assist emerging farmers, as we are known, and smaller producers, smaller secondary producers to implement their food safety and quality systems, whether it's FSSC, whether it's HACCP, and in our agriculture market, it's local gap, global gap. So yeah, that's basically what I do. Short and sweet. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tamsin. Mr. Veli, could you please also introduce yourself and just tell us what you do?
Okay, good evening. My name is Veli Nkosi. I'm with the Tswana University of Technology. I'm a lecturer offering food processing, food safety. But my main interest and also my MSc and PhD environment is on the slaughter processing now of meat animals for food. But now you, Tamsin mentioned something interesting about farmers, and I feel now also that's one of the findings that there's a wide gap and it's widening on a daily basis, where you look at farmers who are coming up vis-a-vis formal. So we try to bridge the gap. And again, I've worked again around the issue of abattoir registrations and how really are we going to achieve that with now government calls it illegal slaughter. Somebody will call it cultural and all those issues. I'm looking forward to a new environment similar to Prof. It's new to me. It was my first time learning about Twitter Spaces, but I'm looking forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Veli. And as you can see, it's easy as ABC. Thank you so much for joining us. Over to you, Prof. Please introduce yourself and just tell us more about what you do.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be on this platform. I feel a bit like Donald Trump. That's all I know about Twitter until right now. Now I realize there's another way to communicate. Okay, I work on food safety, but mainly fresh produce. I try and focus on training students for the future and looking at both the impact of contaminated irrigation water on the crops that we produce and the whole food system all the way from the farm to the plate, looking at both formal and informal sectors. So we have different students working on different aspects, and it's just a great pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor for us, for you guys to take out the time to come and teach us and educate us. So we are grateful for you guys to be here as well. Let me get straight to it. Tamsin, I'll start with you. What is food safety and quality assurance or legislation?
Uh, Straight to the point. Look, a lot of people have different definitions of what food safety is. For me, food safety is getting the processes right the first time. So, for instance, if you are looking at, I'll always refer to the agriculture market. Um, you need to prepare, handle, and store food safe the first time. Um, like Prof mentioned, one of our focus points is treating with contaminated water. So if you are starting off your process by irrigating your crops with contaminated water, you already on a minus there. You're already starting on the back foot. But if you are introducing contaminants, microorganisms, physical contamination, or biological or chemical contamination into your product from the start, um, it's difficult to control your food safety going down the line. And for me, I think I've adapted food safety to for myself is doing the fundamentals right the first time. Like I said, the preparation, the handling, and the storage of your food right the first time. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Tamsin, for that explanation. I think it was short and sweet and to the point that food safety is about handling our food correctly the moment we say we are farmers. And I think that's very important. I want to go over to you, Veli. So how does actually food safety apply to me in primary production? You know, I'm a farmer, I do fresh foods, or for other farmers who are doing livestock. How does food safety apply to us?
Okay, now the general view to it will be the products that are released from my facility should be a product that is not bringing harm to the consumer. That's one. But I have found that mainly issues of food safety and the quality are generally not issues that a farmer wants to listen to. But then it is important that you one complies for market purposes, and the second point is will be everybody needs to look at the environment of safe food consumption. Now, from farm to fork, now the new world talks of One Health, where one looks at the all dynamics are involved from the processing of really purchasing seeds to the processes of preparing the land, and also one may also look at the processes of getting a calf and then bringing it up, injecting it, and later on killing it in a way that is also not against animal welfare and doesn't bring pain to the animal. And the last part, that is the abattoir setup. Every product that must be produced or that must be consumed or that must be sold in South Africa, meat product must be through an abattoir setup where meat inspection should have been done, where possible lab analysis for that meat could be done in an event of being suspected. But all these things evolve around still making the product safer for the consumer. I think the most important part will be the farmer needs to know that a safer product is a marketable product. And also, if you want needs to join the market easier, if you go in there with a product that is safer, it is much better. I think that's that all to break down, Kukum.
Thank you so much, Veli. And I really want us to touch more on the slaughtering process and the certifications that we need, because a lot of times I have observed farmers who have their own processing system and from then, you know, do their own packaging and sell to the locals, you know, and they're not really interested in having a certification to sell their produce elsewhere, because they feel like if they can do it themselves, they already have the markets, you know, why bother? So
True.
I want to come to you, Prof, you know, because I think we are getting the general definition of what food safety is, that it assists smallholder farmers like myself to produce fresh produce, but to access both local markets, you know, by producing good quality produce that complies with food safety required by the market. And this will make
the consumer, he who eats the food, in the central point of this discussion today, because it's all about the health of the consumer. And this is very important. So any food that the consumer eats must be safe. And if we define safety, we are referring to microbial hazards, and these can be foodborne pathogens. So you all know Listeria, the famous bologna story. Most people will know Salmonella. Most people will know E. coli, and that stands for Escherichia coli. And there's many others, but these are the most important. But there's also chemical hazards, and these are chemicals. So these are the pesticides that we spray onto our crops, and we are applying it in not correct dosages. But it can also be mycotoxins. So this is very important because mycotoxins are the toxins produced by fungi that grow in plants. So we need to distinguish between all of this. But what I want to say to all our farmers, food safety is everyone's responsibility. And I want to put a call out to all our farmers. Become a safe food farmer because you care. And if it's not safe food, it's not a real food.
Thank you so much, Prof. We are definitely listening. We are definitely hearing it, that food safety begins with the farmers, especially because we are responsible for people's health, people's nutrition. So we need to take food safety very, very seriously. And Tamzin, I want to come to you because now I really want us to speak about the certifications that we need, to comply. What can you tell us about the fresh produce compliance?
Look, Gugu, there's the main ones. If you are looking from a primary producer's point of view, meaning us, the farmers, in South Africa, I think the lowest level, the entry level is local gap, which forms part of global gap. And GAP stands for Good Agricultural Practices. Which you need to adhere to if you're looking to go into the retail space. Some retailers are very lenient, as if you're supplying end-to-end products. If I'm selling directly to, let's say, the hawkers on the street, you definitely don't need any certification. But if you are looking to go into the formal market, which is your retail stores, your Spars and your Pick n Pays and your Woolies, they definitely want you to comply with Global Gap. For some retailers, Global Gap is not enough. Then you need to be Global Gap certified, and Global Gap is a little bit more. A step up from local gap. So local gap, basically you need primary farm assurance. They'll come out, and the thing is with local gap, you will not allowed to export your product. With global gap, you are allowed to export. Local gap, basically, you need to adhere to, like Prof mentioned, a spraying program, and make sure that your contaminants or your contamination from chemical or your pesticides and herbicides is to an acceptable level, and that's one of the most important things with GAP, the Good Agricultural Practices, that you need to adhere to a spraying program. Your one of the most important things is your water that you are irrigating with needs to be free of microorganisms. Prof mentioned the famous Listeria one, and also one of the big ones is E. coli when you are doing your spraying program, as well as your TMAs and your yeast and mold and all of those things. But if you are looking to go into the retail market or the formal market, you need to adhere to a global gap or a local gap. That is from a farmer's perspective. If you are now packing, you need to look at um, entry level HACCP assessment or GMPs, that's good manufacturing practices, to certify your pack house. Or if you are looking to export, you need to adhere to a global gap on your farm, and either depending on where you are exporting to which country. If you're looking to export to the EU, you need to adhere to BRC, that's British Retail Consortium. And if you are, it depends, like I said, it depends where you're exporting to. Most countries do accept FSSC 22000 or ISO 22000, but some countries are very finicky and they want you to have BRC. Yeah, that's basically covering it from the farm as well as the pack house point of view.
Thank you so much, Tamsin, for telling us about, well, giving us a breakdown of that. And I want us to speak more on who is actually responsible for food safety. Like, where do you go to? I'm a farmer, I don't have much information, because a lot of the times, farmers are more focused on making sure that their product or produce is right. Our focus is on yields, not necessarily, all these certifications that we need to have. So who is responsible for food safety, and where do we go, which department, and how much does it cost? Veli, I will ask you that question.
Okay, now in general terms, food safety resides within it's everybody's responsibility. Okay, now to start with, but now when one needs to comply, now normally there are those people who were former called health inspectors. They were possible are the custodians of the R9 regulation 9638. And now, when one looks at the general acceptability of laws, it will be those guys who are within the municipal areas, as well as the National Department of Health and the National Department of Agriculture, especially for the agricultural products processing. That if we now you are processing, but in essence, one needs to look at the agriculture, the National Department of Agriculture, and also the Department of Health, that also does the visits and also does the shop inspection wherever your product will be, that also have a mandate to also sample your product from the consumer's point of view. So one needs to almost cover all those areas. Now, of course, when one wants to have a total a watertight environment, will have to familiarize himself or herself with all the people that must check me, all the lawmakers that must check me. This in South Africa, I found it very strange because farmers are easily visited by almost everybody else who requests or requires a specific type of compliance. Now, it is the honorable thing for a farmer to almost know that the National Department of Agriculture has an interest, also the Department of Health has an interest, and I've seen now there are food technologies that visits possibly processing plants to look at the quality, and I'll make an example in the poultry industry where there could be the use of brine. So now they want to check if you are really in the limits that you are saying you are in. There's also some people called assignees. They are assigned on behalf of government to almost render kind of a similar service to the industry. So now these assignees also go through the process of applying with government to be certified to visit clients. Now, under normal circumstances, one will be happier to deal with one person. But unfortunately, dear farmers, you have quite a big number of people that have an interest in you and now on food safety. And also added to that, there's also the labor guys who are still going to come. So now on food safety alone, you had mainly about three guys that I can, on top of my mind, think of. That's the National Department and the National Department of Health. Of course, these people also reside within each district municipalities and also the provincial departments, still also under the National Department of Agriculture. That veterinary people, they also have an interest in your facilities and the way you are doing it, and also they would like to regulate the way you are doing it. They'll possibly also audit you and certify you to a greater extent. So yeah, those are the guys with an interest from the top of my mind.
Sure. Honestly, I felt that being a farmer is enough because I'm already making sure that I ensure food security. And on top of that, now I need to ensure food safety. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's draining, to be honest with you. Who can do this paperwork for us? Who can make it easier for us? And how much do we need to pay? Let's say I want to get into the entry level. All I want to do is supply my food to Spar, my food to Pick n Pay, my food to food lovers. That is my goal. That is my dream. Where do I go? What do I need? Tamsin.
Gugu, look, if you, like you said, if your focus is on food security and not really food safety, and we're not taught as an emerging farmer, an informal farmer, a backyard farmer, call it what you want, what food safety is. And I think I've seen a lot of these programs being run in the KZN area, not so much in Gauteng, is where you have people coming out to make people. Gugu, can you hear me? Hello, Gugu.
Hi, Tamsin. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right, cool. I just heard some. Sorry. So I was saying that where you need to start off is actually familiarizing yourself with what food safety is, and the procedures and the protocols that goes into having a food safety system implemented in your production, and with food safety goes quality as well. And there's a lot of what's the word that I'm looking for? There's a lot of misunderstanding around what you actually need if you are looking to supply to a Pick n Pay or a Spar or a retailer for that matter. So if you are someone looking for some guidance, there is entities like myself, which is Crystal Consulting. We would come in, assess your readiness to go into market, and depending on where you are, we would do a gap assessment, just to identify where the system is at the moment. Most of my clients really don't have any system in place, so we literally start at zero. We give training to the food handlers as to what you need to do. Something very important is to wash your hands. Now, when you're in the field, you're not close to running water, or you are not close to a tap, for that matter. What can you do to replace the water? So it's questions like that. And the reason why I started what I am doing is because there is such a big gap, like Veli also mentioned, with farmers not understanding that food safety is one of the most important things, because one thing that I always tell my clients is we do not want another listeria crisis on our hands. And people don't know, but if you don't wash your listeria, is, it thrives in soil. So if you are eating contaminated food that's not washed properly, there's 100%. Okay, I'm not going to say 100%, but there's a big chance that you can get listeriosis as well. So yeah, that's one of the most important things that I think needs to be addressed is the training gap, and it's the information gap. Let me say
Yes,
that it's the information gap
I
with
agree with
farmers.
you. I agree with you, Tamsin. And that's what we want to know as farmers is that, clearly food safety is very important. So now here I am, I'm producing quality foods. I want to comply with food safety. I want to make my produce marketable and acceptable for local and even international markets. But let's start with local. I want to supply Pick and Pay. What is it that they usually look out for? And how much is the certification? What is it that we need to make sure that we are always complying to, that adheres to food safety and makes our produce marketable? I feel like any of our
I don't think, Prof. I think you you can take this one.
Okay. Sorry, guys, I flipped off this Twitter, but I'm back on. So these are baby steps, and it's very important to start in your own community when you start supplying food. And it's all about proud and dignity, being proud of your product, and make knowledge your friend. So, by the way, it's only a Twitter away, we now know. And I can see in the future it's going to be a one-stop shop, because the farmers need this information. We need to make it easily accessible. And first of all, you need to supply local safe food. And then you go one step further, and that will be your sort of next phase, that you want to enter the local markets. You want to get to the best retailer and deliver your product. And I must tell you that the retailers have their own standards. They do require you to obviously have the local gap, which is just a diluted version of global gap, frankly. And then they will tell you, on top of that, you'll still have to comply with their so-called standards or requirements. Now, I can tell you Woolworths have their own. They don't share it freely. It's their market edge, they say.
Calvin, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, I think Calvin is having some technical issue. I have a question. So when it comes to hello, Calvin? Okay, so if there's anyone else who would like to ask our speakers anything, please request to become a speaker so that you can ask your question directly. My question is, it becomes tricky then, because over Sunday we need to comply, but yet again we are seeing so many of the informal sector selling food that has no compliance. I won't say it's clean, I won't say it's dirty, it has no compliance.
Ahead of letters, and you're selling it to me, and tomorrow I pass. The government, or no, let me not say the government, there's going to be a root cause analysis, and it's going to be found that there was negligent practices during the sale of the product. Yes, it was bought an informal early, but you still need to adhere to certain things. Just all of the speakers that spoke said that food safety is all of our responsibilities. Coming to the informal market, and yes, I do understand when you say that no one's gotten sick, no one's died, or there hasn't been any backlash. But the tricky thing is, um, um, food safety and food quality systems is a preventative measure that you're putting in place. Um, you are stopping something from happening. That's why something very nice in your systems is, you there's something called preventative measures, or preventative requirements that you need to to document. Let's say, for instance, I'm referring back to lettuce, because lettuce is something that we consume quite a lot. One of the preventative measures is that your microbial growth needs to be within a certain point. And if you have a head of lettuce tested at a microbial facility or at a micro lab, and you find that this head of lettuce um, um, is not within the specification of um, the micros allowed. Um, if you see that and you still go ahead with selling that head of lettuce, you as a supplier are going to be held accountable, um, because there is certain things that you can put in place um, to prevent people from getting sick. Now, we are informal farmers. We don't necessarily have access to a lab or all of these facilities. But there's other things. Put something in place that will give my clients the peace of mind that I am doing something towards my footprint in the food safety or creating food safety culture, and that's the biggest word that 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 we need to try and grasp. Is it's a culture, it's how you live. It's when you go and wash your hands before you're eating, or washing your hands before you touch food, or when you prepare food. It's something that's ingrained in you as a human. That's how you are not going to forget it, because it's something that it's ABCs. When you wake up in the middle of the night, all right, cool, this is what I need to do. And that's how you need to create the culture of food safety.
Oh, thank you so much, Tasman, for that. And I think you are right in saying that it's a culture, definitely. And I'd like to believe that us farmers, we do, practice food safety and hygiene with our produce, because if we love farming, we love the food that we produce as well. So we want to make sure that it's clean and all of that. So what we are learning now is the compliance and the certification that we need, which is also very important. We have a question here from Clarence. Clarence, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, Gugu, and good evening to you and everyone, particularly the speakers.
Good
Mine
evening,
is
Clarence.
Thank you. Mine is rather broad. I hope I can still communicate what I want to ask, but allow me to just quickly say, my question is stemming from the fact that we today are living in a world which is very capitalistic in nature. So we find ourselves as farmers also in a hurry to, make that money that we want from our farming businesses and so on. And obviously, what that means for most people, because of that urge to make money, is to neglect this very important subject. I'm glad you brought it up this week, and so much, so much to learn. My question, therefore, with this race to make more money from our businesses is to the speakers, particularly that have come through today. Very, very nice speakers, I must say. What, in your view, can you teach us or share with us concerning the GMOs? What place and what concerns should we as farmers have regarding GMOs to our livestock, to our crops? Obviously, this is a huge, huge thing that today in present world is of great concern. But what are some of the concerns as regards food safety with GMOs? Let me end there and perhaps give chance to others. That's my question.
Thank you so much. Speakers, is there any one of you who'd like to answer Clarence's question?
Gugu, I can respond to Clarence, and I want to tell him that today we're using cell phones, no longer those old telephones that you used to turn. I remember those. So you know what? Technology moves on. We're now going to Mars. We've been at the moon. And we shouldn't be scared of the technology because we've got satellites running around the globe and watching us all the time. And that's our new world. So GMO is here. We now have CRISPR technology, which is smartphone watches one of these days that will communicate with our plants, and satellites telling us when to spray chemicals. This is the world we're going to live in. So I want to say we need to trust the system because it's going to change anyway.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Vita.
Nice, fine. Since we're talking about food safety, I want to ask about organic farming, like using those organic pests and organic fertilizers, like rabbit urine. Have you ever heard about that?
Have we heard about?
Rabbit urine.
Oh, rabbit urine as a measure of food safety.
No. I'm just asking, like, is it wise to use organic methods?
Oh, okay. Speakers, would anyone care to answer Sarah Vita's question?
Saravita, if I may, the urine of a rabbit, if used to fight microorganisms, it's one of the research it evolves. Now, if the farmer can prove evidence that at the end of the day, your produce is safe microbially, chemically, as well as physical hazards are not within your produce, I doubt that there should be problems with any type of organic ways of doing it. I mean, we have organic acids that are accepted, such as the lactic acid, the normal vinegar acetic acid, and you can use it to reduce. It is evidently proven that, or there's evidence or sufficient evidence that microorganisms by specific logs can be reduced by applying this type of organic acids. Now, it is the onus lies with the farmer to continuously make sure that the produce or the product is safe for human consumption and it meets the minimum requirements from heavy metals point of view, as well as the other hazards. And there's a new trend now where one looks at the allergens. It's a new concept. Yes, it's been old, but still, the farmers has the responsibility to provide evidence of not being outside the specs. I hope, Saravita, I've answered you on the use of organics.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Veli, for answering his question. Is there anybody else who'd like to ask our speakers a question? You guys may request to be a speaker and ask our speakers direct questions. This is the last time I will open up the floor. So if you want to ask your question, please don't be shy. This is a safe space. I have a question. My question is that, when we're speaking about food safety, I'm going to be honest and say that for me, it was the big commercial farmers' responsibility, because they are complying with like food safety protocols, like what Tamzin mentioned, Global Gap. So, and not all they are in the minority, the farmers who have the Global Gap certification. And now that I'm thinking about it, now that we're having this conversation and we are seeing that most farmers don't have compliance, but they are selling to the local markets, they are making money from that, and they're selling to local businesses where nobody stresses us about paperwork. So now, with that being said, why should we as farmers invest huge sums in food safety protocols, when our local markets' food safety compliance is really non-existent? If you go to markets like Springs Market and stuff like that. So why should we even invest in stuff like that? Is it really our responsibility, or should the government step in here?
Look, Gugu, I'm gonna try and answer that to the best of my ability, and stress again that we the food safety program and procedures are there for preventative measures, and for you to be able to know that you are putting a safe product into the market. And yes, there are a lot of producers buying from farmers that's non-compliant, or that doesn't have the certification. But you don't need to necessarily have the certification to have certain procedures in place. So if I have hand washing procedure at work, or at my facility, it is literally it's at my facility. You can have all of the processes in place, and when you are financially stable, you can look into getting certification. The be all, and yes, the end goal is to get certified, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you practice good practices, good manufacturing practices throughout your processing. And if you get to a point, because I'm sure your end goal is also not to just sell to into the informal market. I'm sure your end goal is to sell to a retailer, or to a more formal client. And if you get to that point, if and when you get to that point, it's going to be easier for you to just say, listen, Intertech or any third party, can you please come in and audit my facility? And can we look into getting some sort of certification? But in a perfect world, yes, it is it's a great thing to have in your facility or at the farm. It is sometimes costly, but if it is a current, or if it's a continual process of implementation, it's not expensive. It's not expensive for you to tell your guys on the farm, listen, can you just wash your hands? that's the entry point. Sterilize the knives if you're cutting heads of lettuce. But also, if you are supplying an informal seller, or if you're supplying, let's say, Joburg Market, um, the, the 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 clients that's buying from the market, you'll also find that most of them are also informal clients selling to the informal market. So that doesn't really affect them. I think like when what Prof said is, if you're selling to a retailer, they also have their own standards, and if you don't adhere to that standards, they will tell you, listen, um, try and get these processes and procedures in place, and then we can look at you to supply us. But for me, what I normally tell my clients is, it is a preventative measure, to have and to eliminate the contamination, or it's micro or chemical or physical, but it is mostly a preventative measure.
Thank you so much, Tamsin, for that reminder. And I think you're right in saying that as farmers, we are compliant in our non-certified way, and we do really try our best. And with regards to food safety, we do practice it. I mean, as a farmer, you understand that you can transfer viruses if you're using the same knives to cut your cabbage or your lettuce heads, and you didn't do an inspection and scout for diseases and all sorts of things. So we do understand food safety in our own way. It's just that when we want to export, or when we want to sell to local markets, that's when we are confused. And we're so thankful actually for this platform, because you guys shared so much and you taught us so much as well, that if you are food safety compliant, it can open you up to a lot of opportunities. As a certified brand, you can now approach Pick n Pay and say, hey, I sell Guguletu cabbages, and you grow as a brand if you comply with food safety. But most importantly, it's bigger than that. It's a shared responsibility. We all are the guardians of food, so we need to make sure that our food is clean, it is safe enough to eat by anyone and everyone. There's no classism, in food. So I think that brings us to the end of the show. There's seems to be no questions. So what I'm going to do is that I'll just ask our speakers if you have any last parting words for us. Tamsin?
I just want to say thank you, Google, for this platform that you guys have created. I think it's an amazing platform for us as farmers, because you discuss topics that we don't necessarily take to heart. And I really just want to say thank you. And if anyone has any further questions, you can either contact me via Twitter. I'll try my best to assist. We are literally here to help, and for me, if I can help a farmer to get into a sector that makes him more profitable, him or her more profitable, then I would do my utmost best to do this, or to assist, because I know the struggle of trying to get to market and trying to find someone that can buy your produce. So yeah, don't hesitate. There's myself. I'm available.
Thank you so much, Tasman. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for organizing Boot Valley as well. Boot Valley, any parting words that you have?
No, thank you so much, Kuku. And I really enjoyed this session. We normally use the normal Zoom and Teams and Skype, but now this is a new one. I'm thinking maybe I should enroll it to my students. Nevertheless, thank you so much, much appreciated. But farmers, please note must comply with the general hygiene requirements for a food premises, even the transporter. But remember also there is a regulation that makes it your responsibility to just implement the basic hazard analysis and critical control in your environment. I think it is regulation 607 or 608, if not mistaken. Now, also this ties with our SEN standard as 10330, meaning once you put this in place, once your paperwork is in place, you can easily say, look, now let's go for monitoring. Let's identify these hazards. Let's evaluate them. Let's minimize them. Are they in a state where they are not supposed to be, or they are going to cause harm to the final consumer? In these few words, please bear with South Africa is changing to the better. I think it must be an idea of identifying the minimum, the direction of legislations. I think farmers, you should have a great time. And thank you so much, Kuku. Much appreciated. Tamzin and Prof and everybody else appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Veli. And guys, Veli just reminded us of something very important, that as farmers, we drive policies. So it's very important to also provide data so that we can shift the country to where it needs to be as well. So we really have a big responsibility on our hands. Prof, please unmute yourself and just, leave us with motivating words about food safety, and tell us what you think.
Well, I want to say to all the farmers, just remember, you are key in the food security challenge that we have. We have a lot of people to feed. It's really in your hands. You can make a difference. But the most important is you need to think of what will differentiate you from the next farmer or the big farmer. And the most important point is step into your shoes. It's maybe baby shoes now, but one of these days it will be big shoes and you can export. I also want to really mention COVID, because COVID changed everything for all of us. But the important contribution of COVID was it taught us about hand hygiene, it taught us about sanitation, and it taught us about good practices. And I want to encourage each and every farmer to start today. Start tonight before you go and have your meal, or after your meal, go and wash your hands. And when you work on your farm, just keep that in mind. There's microorganisms are everywhere. That's an old saying. Nature selects. So let's select the best microorganisms. Thank you, Gugu. It's a wonderful program.
Thank you so much, Prof. Dintswalo, I know you were struggling with your network, but please, if you're here, leave us with parting words. What should we look out for, especially fresh produce farmers? Any tips and tricks?
Hello, Google. As Thompson said, and Billy said, and Prof just said, I will just emphasize wash, 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 clean, 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 clean. I think that's the best we can do. As you're saying that, why should you comply if the market does not comply? You do your part. The important thing is if everybody did their part, everybody did the small portion that they are responsible for, and then we might find ourselves in an environment where food safety is a culture. So as Thompson said, is that it will be a culture. If you do what you're supposed to do, and somebody downstream doesn't do what they're supposed to do, and I think we'll get there. So the important thing, the Prof is saying, let's start and make it a culture. Let's just wash, wash, and clean, clean. I think that's what I can say.
Wash, wash, clean, clean. Farmers, you heard it. Thank you so much to our speakers, Tamzin, Veli, Prof. Dintswalo. I appreciate you guys for taking the time to educate us on food safety. Thank you so much. We had a blast. We learned a lot, and we will definitely do our part as farmers. Thank you, guys. This is the end of our session.
Thank you, Gugu.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Gugu.